What is up, everybody? Welcome in to the Built-in Buffalo post-game show. I'm Anthony Romeo from the Hoof Podcast, here with my guy Akeem. And ladies and gentlemen, the Buffalo Bills are 4-2. All right, we'll put it there first. The Bills are 4-2. We got the win. That is what we needed today. The only thing we needed today was that W and maybe to stay healthy. But W is what we got. But let me tell you, that was one of the most absolute ugliest games of football I have ever watched on both sides of the ball. The refs completely took the game over, just flags everywhere. A lot of them were deserved. And oh, wait, this is just in now. We're getting a flag on the show. Flags have been thrown on the show, ladies and gentlemen. We've got the refs are conferring. The refs are conferring. Let's take a 5-minute break here to let the refs talk about what the hell is going on, because they can't figure it out either, apparently. And I mean, just the length of the game from those calls alone was like, what the heck? Every play, literally, it seemed like. I mean, it was just absolute nonsense from start to finish. I mean, ugly game. But again, ultimately what matters is the Buffalo Bills got that W. And I have to give respect to the Jets. You know, they fire their coach. You know, they're coming in with that one game fired your coach boost that every team seems to get. And Aaron Rodgers and Breece Hall had probably their best, not probably, they did have their best games of the year in this game against Buffalo. They really brought it. But luckily for us, the Bills were able to hold on and squeak by. And so much to talk about this game, from, you know, the offense to Tyler Bass. I mean, we got a lot to get into for sure. But Akeem, give me your initial thoughts as well. I mean, obviously it's a win. We're happy about that. At least we're not here exploding at a 3-game losing streak or anything. But a 2-game lead in the division too, by the way. Unbelievable right now for the Bills, especially with how we're playing. But your just general thoughts so far on this game that we just watched, that we just witnessed.
What a sloppy game. What a sloppy, entertaining, overall, it was just too much in terms of the flags. Just like you said, you called the flags, you called the correct plays. You know, I can't get mad at a certain holding calls or certain penalties when they're actually penalties. But some of the other penalties, like the Spencer Brown unnecessary roughness.
Yeah, the personal fouls were just like, what are you calling?
The AJ,
I called one on Taron Johnson. I still don't know what he did. I don't know.
The AJ Epinesa, the sack, where he fell on top of him.
Yeah.
You know, I even heard something about it was unsportsmanlike conduct, inappropriate conversation. It was just a lot to
that
deal
was
with.
The Deion Dawkins. Yeah, like what?
Yeah, it was just a lot to endure for fans of both teams. But as Buffalo Bills fans, you know, excited to come away with the victory and have that 2-game lead. It was important for us, you know, having this 2-game losing streak to come back and get back to the basics and get a W on the win column. And now we can go in, get out of Jersey as fast as we can, and move on to the next Tennessee Titans, I believe. But we're definitely going to do a deep dive into this game.
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot there too. That's so true. I mean, so many big plays that were like momentum changers in this one. And again, so much to get to. I have, you know, just some brief things that I was taking notes on during the game, just to be like, oh my God, we're going to have to talk about this. And one of the things, before we even get started, don't forget to smash that like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. You'll get all of our good content at Built in Buffalo. But our guy Izzy coming in with the super chat, and super chats get shown on screen and get priority. So here he is, Izzy, saying, hell yeah, Bills MF win. We'll censor it. Luck over good, I say. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what it came down to today. But I would argue there was some luck going the Jets' way to keep them in it. So at least finally it broke to what it should have been, normalized, I would say, more than anything. But like you said, Bills get the win. Hell yeah. Thanks, Izzy, for the super chat, because, you know, again, those get priority, those get shown. But if we're going to discuss this game, you know, right off the start, the Jets get the ball to start. And to me, it's just this, for some odd reason, it feels like always with McDermott, the defense comes out flat. Like they're just half asleep out there, kind of learning. The first drive tends to be the opposing team's best drive, right? They either score a touchdown and then the Bills defense wakes up and shuts them out, or in this case, we held them to a field goal. Well, they only got a field goal. We'll put it that way, because remember that drive ended with a dropped pass by by their running back, not by the Bills making some kind of defensive stop. And there was that weird, I think it was a second down play where our guys were running into each other. Hamlin looked like he tackled our guy instead of their guy, and I was like, what is happening? Very flat to start on defense. Did not like it at all. Was happy they only got a field goal out of it. But again, it wasn't really on the strength of the defense. It was just them. And coming into this game, I don't know about you, but I was more worried about, okay, the Jets defense always gives Allen fits. We know what they can do. Are the Bills going to be able to run the ball? Reports coming into today were that James Cook would play. He doesn't end up playing, which I actually think benefited the team, because I was more worried about him playing and not being efficient and them still sticking to him. But Ray Davis and Ty Johnson get some play and really capitalize on that in the Bills' first possession. So that start of the game to me was rocky, but little did we know it was going to set the tone for the whole rest of the game, that, oh, you didn't like that, or this was weird, or that funkiness was going on. Well, buckle down, because you got 4 quarters of that coming up here. And that the Bills' next possession, or first possession, obviously they really run the ball down the field. Ray Davis especially, but Ty Johnson got some touches in there as well. First down after first down, chunk yardage after chunk yardage. Allen punches it in. They get called for a penalty. Ray Davis brings it back to the one. Allen punches it in again for that first touchdown, which was, again, just kind of showing that the Bills could have their way with this defense. And on that drive especially, they did everything they wanted to. So what did you think coming out with that, with the running backs, especially in the role that they played, not only in that first drive, but throughout the rest of the game, right? And Ray Davis looking like, he's a stud for a guy that we got, fairly late in the draft in terms of, running backs, but yeah. So your thoughts on the running backs and their impact on this game?
Yeah, I'm gonna get into the running backs, but you said a lot there, and
The
quite
Jets defense to start. Yeah.
Yep, Jets defense to start, or the Buffalo Bills defense to
Our
start.
defense,
I was concerned. I had my concerns coming into this game, right? Because the Jets are going through a lot. They have Jeff Ulbrich, I believe now, is the interim head coach for the New York Jets, and he spoke specifically about getting back to running the football. And when I looked at the Buffalo Bills, they do not have Ed Oliver, they don't have Von Miller, they're missing some pieces in the interior. The Buffalo Bills are giving up 5.2 yards per rushing attempt, which is tied for last in the NFL with the New York Giants. So I had my concerns coming into the game, and once the game started, it was like, okay, Breece Hall, they're starting to attack, right? And it was definitely frustrating in the beginning. There was no resistance shown, not much resistance shown, and they got a field goal. I like that our Buffalo Bills offense was able to keep afloat because we had our concerns, right? We struggled against the Baltimore Ravens. Then we had them red zone opportunities where we failed to capitalize against the Houston Texans. Well, we got the ball and we set the tone. I believe Ty Johnson set the tone when he started the game and getting those chunk yards. Dalton Kincaid and Ray Davis set the tone with their physicality. I think the Buffalo Bills was as physical as I've seen them thus far all season. Tonight against the New York Jets, and I believe that was able, that because of the physicality, they were able to set a tone that way. And I was concerned at first with the James Cook injury. I didn't know how good Ray Davis was. We saw small sample sizes and little glimpses, but we was unsure if he can carry the workload. And we all know that the New York Jets defense has been good for a number of years now. So how would we respond? And Ray Davis came out, man, and he looked very good as a 4th round pick. He was making tough physical runs, running downhill, making jump cuts, and making guys miss when necessary, displaying hands. coming out the backfield,
Oh,
catching
yeah.
the deep ball, man. So I really like the complement of backs that the Buffalo Bills have, and I think it's an underrated set of backs the Buffalo Bills had, but they was put on display against one of the better defenses in the NFL, and because of Ray Davis and his tone-setting approach, I believe that was a big part of why the Buffalo Bills came with the victory tonight.
Yeah, I would agree that even that first drive, you could tell on offense, the physicality was as high as I've seen it this season for sure, and one of the highest I've seen it under McDermott in a long time, right? That the pounding attitude was just play after play, and it was everybody. The O-line was physical, the running backs were physical. It just lifted the energy level of the offense, it felt, especially on that first drive. And then, um, you know, I would say throughout the end of the game too, that physicality mattered for the big plays that we saw. But after the Bills pound down and score that touchdown, the Jets get the ball back and end up getting a touchdown of their own on the one play where I was like, what the heck was going on in this drive? Was, there's pressure on Aaron Rodgers. There was clearly a tug of the jersey and some other stuff going on. No holding called. And, he bombs it down the field. They get a catch, to keep the drive alive and end up getting a touchdown. And this is where all the craziness really started with the flags and the nonsense and the half the distance to the goal. And, oh, now it's a first down. It just got wild from there in terms of the flags and the penalties. But the Bills, the penalties and the calls really influence the game. So that no call holding call early, I'm like, oh, is this going to be how the game goes? Little did we know it'd be the most flags thrown. Bills get the ball after that and nothing happens, right? We have to punt it back. And I'm like, oh, great. 3 and out after you freaking give up a touchdown is not exactly what you want. And then the Bills make another big stop on defense. And this is where I felt like, okay, the defense is finally awake now. Like I said, they come out cold, kind of asleep. Then it felt like, okay, there we go. We see now the defense is awake here. And it was that first big hit in the backfield by Terrell Bernard that I felt like, oh, okay, that was the play that now brought the physicality to the defense and kind of woke them up. There was some other botch plays. The one that kind of broke my heart was I've been waiting for Samuel to get involved in this offense, right? And my freaking God, in this game too, they gave it to him twice again behind the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage with these stupid screen passes that they keep doing with him. But he also got open in the end zone, wide open, and Allen just kind of missed the throw. We got the touchdown on the next play to Hollins. So that was a good drive capper as well. But some things that were left on the table still left us wanting more, including after that touchdown, which is when Tyler Bass, I think that was the one where Tyler Bass missed the extra point. And now all of the questions start coming back, right? Because Bass has been hot and cold and okay, he can't make an easy one, or, well, he's missed one here, but it wasn't in a big situation. Well, this is a tight game. And you kind of felt early with okay, it seems to be going back and forth. Wait a minute, you missed an extra point. That's going to, reflect. And yes, they said the winds were spiraling or whatever, but that missed extra point looked bad. I think a guy got a hand on it and blocked it, but it still did not look good coming off of Bass's foot. So that was where the question started and only would continue into the game as things got worse. But that the half ends, the half ends with the Hail Mary, right? We have to talk about that play too, which was a momentum crusher for the Bills, right? And this is after, so we skipped away. I fast forwarded a little bit because that's an important play, but you had the huge sack. Daquan Jones had a sack of Aaron Rodgers that was key. Epinesa made a big play. Then when we got the ball back, Osiris Torrance made the save of probably the game when Josh Allen tried to do too much in the red zone, fumbles. He jumps on it. We keep the ball. Then the next play is a touchdown to Knox. But the play that's the most impactful to me, or the most concerning, that They get the ball back. What was left? 28 seconds or something, 36 seconds, something like that. They pass a couple of passes, to get within Aaron Rodgers bombing it down the field into the end zone range. And we know what's coming. And yet still McDermott and his terrible freaking game management. It's like, come on, dude, you know what's coming. You have to know how to defend it. You've got 4 guys in the end zone to their 1 receiver. And yet somehow that guy catches the ball and gets 2 feet down to get the touchdown. I mean, it's just unacceptable in my mind. And that was when the Bills had built up this momentum. And instead of going into the half with all that momentum, you just let it crash down with this huge, miracle play by Aaron Rodgers and Allen Lazard. Great catch by Lazard, but the Bills should not have let that happen. And continually, again, to me, it's like watching the defense on these. They don't know what they're doing. It's like, what's coming. You have to bat the ball down. And yet I see 3 guys going like this. No, you are not catching the ball. You are batting it down. Both of your hands should be doing this, not this. You're a defender. Do this. And it was just so frustrating to see that yet again, because that's happened through the Bills over the years under McDermott. But a huge fatal flaw for McDermott in this game. I posted on Twitter that it's, McDermott is becoming a verb. You're getting McDermott. You're doing McDermott if you are effing up the uneffable, right? Like this is, 13 seconds. Oh, the game's over. Bills win. Nope. You effed up the uneffable, right? Last week, it's it's the fourth quarter, 20 seconds left. Your team has the ball. You're going to run it 3 times, go to overtime because it's tied. Oh, nope. You McDermotted it. You effed up the uneffable, right? Like, I mean, that is what's frustrating to me. That was the first time in the game where I was like, this momentum has changed. Now this game is wide open. And, the feel just on Twitter and in chats with my friends and with Built in Buffalo, it just felt like the momentum had been sucked completely out after that. And that the Jets all of a sudden were going to find a way to win this game.
Yeah, it was, in my opinion, when you talk about a play like that, we should know better, right? We've had this type of play, these instances happened a number of times, and just like a quarterback, when he makes a mistake, what does the coach expect him to do? He expect that player not to make the same mistake twice, right? Doesn't matter the position. That's how you grow as a player, right? That's how you elevate 100%. As a player. And that should be taken to the same account to a coaching staff. And in my opinion, Aaron Rodgers should have never even been in the situation to throw the Hail Mary. Why are we 10 yards off the ball and backpedaling on the snap with 20 some odd seconds left in the half, and they have timeouts?
Yeah.
You're giving them the situational football and clock management in Sean McDermott's brain is not connecting.
It's bad. Yeah, it's always been terrible.
So this is why a lot of people will say, hey, the players was out there and they should have batted it down. Yes, in hindsight, the players are out there. They should have batted it down. But I blame this on Sean McDermott and the coaching staff for putting us in this position to get to begin with, because they shouldn't even been in a position to throw the Hail Mary. And then when they are in the position to throw the Hail Mary, the best guy ever to throw the Hail Mary, Aaron Rodgers, you don't have no pressure whatsoever. So he gets to step back, climb the pocket, and throw the ball to the best of his ability without any pressure around him.
Nothing.
What are we doing? What have we learned over the last 5 years? So that's the most concerning part, man. I know a lot of people is going to say, hey, DeMar Hamlin, and you should have batted the ball down, but I blame that solely on Sean McDermott and the coaching staff, because we've been here before. It's not like we didn't do it before. We've been here before, and we're here again.
Same approach, same result, right? That's the problem, right? Same approach, same result. And it is just frustrating, because every time you're like, dude, you've been in this position before, and yet you still didn't do it right. Like, oh, what happened to this? Oh, we're going to learn from it. We're going to grow from it. Well, you could keep saying that, but you're doing the same mistakes over and over again. You're not growing from it. You're not learning from it. So take that slogan and stick it up your backside, because it didn't work in this game. Now, again, we come out with the win, so this all gets lost in the wash, but that is a huge point for me. Like, moving forward, and I said this last week and the week before with the losses, like when it was McDermott's fault. Those are the things that if they come up in big games when you're against really tough opponents in the playoffs, you're going to lose, right? You cannot make bonehead mistakes like that against playoff atmosphere teams, right? Like that is, I don't want that to happen again. And I think if it does, then those people calling for McDermott's head will have a reason now because it's happening over and over and over again. I don't think regular season there's anything that could happen to do that, but postseason now, if something like this happens again and it falls on McDermott's shoulders, you just cannot let it slide. And yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely ugly and unforgivable. And on the same side of that coin, unless you have something else to say there with McDermott, I'll
Nah,
close that point out.
yeah, I'll
But
close that out. I want to get into some receivers and some talking points, but go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say that Tyler Bass situation, right?
Mhm.
Because I mean, he misses that extra point in the beginning, and I'm like, God dang, that's huge. Just because, now instead of, it could end up being, I was thinking like a 23-23 instead of 24-23, right? At that time. And little did I know that would it came down to 2020 and we got a field goal. And when we got that go ahead field goal, I said, God damn, it'd be nice to have 4 more points on the board, wouldn't it? With the extra point and the missed field goal. Now, again, the swirling winds, we're not there. I don't know how much that truly affected it. We saw the Jets kicker struggle as well with the
Did, did, did,
wins.
did that make you feel better? Does
No,
Greg Zerloin kick missing field goals make you feel better about Tyler Bass?
absolutely not. To me, that's like, we know our kicker. I don't know their kicker like that. I can't tell if he's struggling over the last few weeks or whatever. So to me, I focus on Bass. And you're right that after he missed that field goal, because it put them in good field position and it felt like the Jets were going to score and end up winning the game there as well. I thought, I mean, people were calling for his head, right? Like, cut him now. Don't let him come back with the team, because his name just keeps coming up as somebody who's struggling in those big situations when we need him to do his job. And that was just one again. He ends up making the chip shot at the end, we should say, right? I was nervous that they were even going for a field goal at that point, because even though it was 22 yards, it ended up being or something. That is not guaranteed in that situation, especially with the way he's been getting blocked and everything. I mean, regardless of whose fault it is, it comes down to Tyler Bass doing his job. And yes, he got the game winning field goal to quote unquote redeem himself, if you will. But I don't know that that's going to calm things down in terms of the concern going forward over, relying on Bass versus needing to go for it to keep drives alive. I think that's where my concern is now. I don't think the team is ready to move on from him, but moving forward, when am I as a fan going to be like, okay, it's an okay situation now that Bass is coming on the field? Because this whole season, I feel like we're holding our breath, right? Is that just me, or is that, I feel like it's all of us? But yeah, I mean, what do we do with Bass? How do you think this works out moving forward? Where are you sitting with this?
Now it's not to this degree and it's not to this magnitude because it's two different positions. One is obviously a main position, and one is a kicker. But Tyler Bass, in my opinion, Sean McDermott, it kind of reminds me of Deshaun Watson and Kevin Stefanski. That's what that I'm not saying it's to that magnitude, right? Because obviously Deshaun Watson, but it's
Yeah.
like Deshaun Watson is obvious he's not ready.
Same line though, right? We
What?
have confidence in our guy. He's got the confidence.
Why are we not taking this guy out? Right? And same goes to Tyler Bass. His contract is the main proponent, in my opinion, as to why
100%.
he remains to keep his job. But that doesn't mean you can't bring in guys. That
Oh,
doesn't mean you can't bring in competition for Tyler Bass. That doesn't mean you can't see what somebody else has to
right,
offer
right.
because of the contract.
Hmm.
So it's just in a reminiscence to me of that Kevin Stefanski, Deshaun Watson
Right.
situation.
And we made the kicker decision fairly early in camp, so it's not like there was, true competition here of, let's bring in somebody and challenge him. So sticking through that to now, the problem is now there's just not a lot out there, right? I mean, who you going to sign that you're going to be like at least more confident than you are in Bass right now? And I don't know that there's a name out there that would make me feel comfortable just saying, okay, it's time to move on from Bass and this guy's going to do better. And this guy we can trust in the postseason when it matters to make a 49-yard kick or above, right? Whereas at least with Bass, we know it's not a leg problem, right?
Mm.
He has the leg. He's got the power. That's not a problem. It's
Mhm.
whatever's going on upstairs, I think, that is blocking him out, because he's always been able to kick it from 60 plus yards and down the pipes, right? We've seen that year after year. So the hope is that he can get right. And right now it seems like the organization is just all in with that, right? There's no solution in
At least
front
for
of
this
us.
year. At least for the
Yeah,
rest of this year.
exactly.
Mhm.
Right. And if he misses a big one in the playoffs, I mean, that's going to be the stain on his career moving forward. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, so that was definitely a huge talking point from this game, is that um, Bass situation, the McDermott thing, at least on the negative side. There is a lot on the positive side. The return of Taron Johnson. What a difference maker, right? And again, not just he had the huge interception at the end to basically seal the win. But that to me wasn't even as big as just his defensive ability on the field, right? Just having him out there. Cam Lewis filled in honorably, and we love him for that. But he's not Taron Johnson, an all pro guy, right? Like this guy, the coverage, there was, a couple of nice catches that Garrett Wilson made in coverage, right?
Mhm.
With coverage. But Taron Johnson to me, it just felt so good seeing him out there, kid. And he's in on the plays, and he's in on almost every tackle, and he's always in the right place, it seems. And obviously, he made that spectacular catch interception to seal the end of the game there, which was
Mhm.
phenomenal. So excellent to see him back. I already talked about Terrell Bernard having an impact. This is only I think it's only the second full game they've played together, because
Mhm.
Taron got hurt after the first game, and then Terrell Bernard shortly after that. So seeing them both back out there, I think, is impactful. And again, minus the Hail Mary, we're talking about 13 points given up to this Jets team. Not that the Hail Mary doesn't count against them, it does, but just thinking in terms of wear and tear of the game and general flow of the game. So Taron
Mhm.
Johnson, to me, you cannot understate his impact on the field. And
Mhm.
and now hopefully moving forward, where we see this defense going and growing together and eliminating those silly mistakes and getting back on the same page. Certainly that seems like it's going to happen. But the safety position, you mentioned earlier, DeMar Hamlin, not his best game. I mean, he made a few good tackles, as you expect any safety will in certain situations, but concern that it is becoming the glaring need and upgradable position for the Bills. I mean, I'd say we knew that all off season basically, but also now that the season has started and we're getting into it, it seems more and more like that's where the offenses against us are targeting, and getting Hamlin to mess up. Like I said, on that first play, it looked like, or first drive, it looked like he was running into our own players, and a couple of times it looked like he was out of position, and the Jets were able to make a big play. What's your level of concern with Hamlin? I've always looked at him as an okay starter, right? I'm okay if he's out there because we know what we're getting out of him. Versus, is he upgradable? Sure. But now this game certainly raised the most concern, I feel. So where's your head at with the DeMar Hamlin? Can the Bills upgrade at safety, or is there a position you think, if there's a trade deadline move or something like that, that we could upgrade differently?
I love DeMar Hamlin. I believe everybody loves DeMar Hamlin's story. Even
Of
if you're
course.
not, even if you're not a Bills fan, ultimately, I think DeMar Hamlin is, a depth piece. I think he's a rotational piece. I think he's a guy that can come in and be a spot starter for a game or two or three and do a fine job. I do not think that you know he's a starting level or starting caliber safety in this league, and he happens to be starting for a team that we hope can hoist a Super Bowl trophy, right? And I think that even though he tries hard, I did see a lot of physicality from him with the Garrett Wilson play, him and Taylor Rapp, and when he's squared up, he will make a play, but he's not athletic. And when you're not athletic, you have to be perfect in terms of instincts and awareness and angles of pursuit. And he struggles in that as well. So when you're not athletic and you struggle in those type of areas in terms of instincts and pursuit angles, I think that it's definitely a area that could be addressed for the Buffalo Bills. The thing about it is there's probably a couple of areas that needs addressing for the Buffalo Bills. So if the Bills do decide to make a move, which direction, should they go? Because Mac Hollins is acting as if he's the number one receiver
Oh
for the
my God.
Bills, right? The Buffalo Bills
So
have
bad.
possibly a safety that shouldn't be starting, and then they have possibly a number 4, maybe 5 receiver acting as their number 1, and they are 4-2 and having some success. So it's definitely some positions to upgrade for the Bills, in my
Yes,
opinion.
yes. And I would think that when it comes to, even today, we saw that it's great to have Khalil Shakir back on the field, but he was clearly not at 100%, wasn't out there for a lot of the snaps, at least what you could see by the eye anyway. I didn't count them or get the percentage snaps or anything, but certainly it'll be nice to work him back up to 100% so that he's the number 1 guy again. But I agree that the glaring thing is this Mac Hollins seems to be a go-to guy on big plays, and I do not like that at all from a guy who should be a 4th wide receiver, or even seeing MVS out there. Like, what? Huh? Who?
Mhm.
Wait, no, I don't want that. So I mean, it's wide receiver is certainly the discussion, knowing that there's people available at the position, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
you look at, like, for example, the move last year with Rasul Douglas. Did any of us see that coming? No, we didn't
Mhm.
know that was coming. But man, what a trade! Wow, we got this guy, and he
Mhm.
came in and he had
Mhm.
an impact, and he's still having an impact with this team. And I don't care what anybody says, that was a hell of a move by the Buffalo Bills. Seems like we kind of fleeced the the Green Bay Packers on that one.
Mhm.
So I just I don't know. I don't know what to think of it here. But I
So
would be happy if the Bills brought in a wide receiver, but that's not my expectation. I think that McDermott is going to, or Bean is going to stand pat there. I do think that they could work some magic and bring in another one of these players like a Rasul Douglas who ends up having an impact down the line.
and I liked it. I like the assessment. Here's why. I would love for the Buffalo Bills to address that receiver position, because I think whether Khalil Shakir is healthy or not, Mac Hollins is going to be on the field in crucial situations because he plays that outside receiver position.
Yeah.
Khalil Shakir plays the slot, so I believe that as much as a good job I think he's doing, Mac Hollins, he's doing a good job. He's maximizing his ceiling right now for the Buffalo Bills. I would love for the Buffalo Bills to add a more higher level of talent in that position to be in those crucial moments to make plays. But I do like what the Bills did with Curtis Samuel today. It's okay, in my opinion, to have Curtis Samuel in the backfield and throwing screens. That's okay if you having him do
Sure.
other things as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
But if you're going to restrict him to just that, it's like, okay, what are we doing here? And
Yeah.
I think now with the injuries, with Khalil Shakir not being 100%, that may be a blessing in disguise, because now it's like it's another week with Joe Brady having to hear this. How do we get Curtis Samuel involved? How do we get Dawson Kincaid involved? And I think he did a solid job in terms of, not a great job, but a building block kind of job, steps that we can build off of in today's game, incorporating Curtis Samuel. And now when we get Khalil Shakir healthy, that could be even better for the Buffalo Bills. So that can be a possible blessing in disguise. While Khalil Shakir is hurt, we have no choice but to utilize the players that are healthy. And when Khalil Shakir comes back, we can compound them players and hopefully get a well-oiled machine run by the time we have healthy offensive players, our best offensive players.
Yeah, I think that's, where you want to be moving forward. It's good to work out those issues now. And I've been saying this after the last 2 losses, too, like, okay, I'm comfortable with screwing that up now as long as you get it right moving forward. And as long as you find those holes and fill them now, right, before it comes to postseason time, like last year when we were down to our 7th linebacker we called on the off of vacation, right? So you don't want that to happen. You have to have a team that's competitive and ready to go despite what may come for the rest of the season, and I think that, we trust Bean's going to make the calls on players that are available and maybe even some that aren't where he sees upgradable positions within the Bills budget as well, right? Because that's always a big thing as well. The Bills are not going to make some splash move that's going to cost them way too much money, right? And I still don't think, if you're talking Devontae Adams, obviously that's the big one that has been discussed, that the Bills aren't going to try and make room for that contract, or aren't going to try and, work magic to bring somebody in. Everybody talks about how the cap is a myth or whatever, but the Bills just don't follow that. They stick to their cap number and what they have and what they can do within that season, within reason. And I don't think Devontae Adams is going to fit into that puzzle. But will it some safety or wherever else, another position where we can add depth, even if they're not an impact starter or player right away? Yeah, I do think that could be pretty impactful. So, yeah.
Let me ask you a question, Ant. I
Yeah.
mean, we're talking about possible adding a safety, which is quite possible. What's going on with Mike Edwards? Why can't we?
I was going to ask that as well. Yeah.
Why can't we just throw out Mike Edwards out there? I find it, and this is no disrespect. I'm just calling a spade a spade. I find it hard to believe he's any worse than DeMar Hamlin. I find it hard to believe.
I mean, that is the question I've had all along too. I thought maybe they would use him kind of like Kansas City did, where he wasn't really an every down player for them, but he made big plays because he was out there in situations where they felt like he could have the biggest impact, I guess. So I, make that rotational type guy. I was like, okay, that's probably what he's going to be. But, the injury and all of a sudden he was inactive for a few weeks, and it's like, wait, what is going on? And we still haven't gotten the story there of, is he just not getting the defense? Is he just not gaining the trust of the coaches? Is it he's on the roster and he's presumably healthy now? Like, why isn't he getting an opportunity, especially at this position where all of us watching the games are saying, yeah, this is kind of a glaring hole that's coming up in the Bills defense. So yeah, I don't know what the story is there, and hopefully we learn more about this moving forward. But to me, if you're not going to use him, just cut him. Like, why even have him on the roster? Find somebody who you can trust and you can get to do it. I always felt in my mind that they wanted it to be a competition with Cole Bishop and to work Cole Bishop in. So that's why they brought in a guy that was a veteran, and it seemed like, oh, okay, we can start Edwards and then, see what happens until Cole Bishop is ready to be that everyday starter. And obviously, like last week, Cole Bishop did get some time, but I don't know. That safety position is a mystery as well. They could stand pat there, just like we were talking about receiver. They could say, no, we know Cole Bishop. We got this other guy that we don't have confidence in yet, but maybe we will moving forward. So we're comfortable with where we're at safety. Let's invest in something else if we're going to do it.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, while we're on the safety position and we're talking about possible upgrades, let me throw a positive out there. Taylor Rapp was huge tonight.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Taylor Rapp was the best game.
Best game as a Buffalo
Bill.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Without
Taylor
a doubt.
Rapp, best game as a Buffalo.
I've been a hater, by the way, of Rapp. From the time when they re-signed him, I was like, no, I don't want to re-sign this guy.
Me too.
He didn't show me anything. Like, I don't want this guy to be our starter. Well, today he proved us wrong.
Yeah,
like this is why they trusted him. Two huge plays. That hit in the end zone where he put his body on the line and just kind of made the play. And then obviously
the tight end.
The pass breakup
on second
on a
16,
third. Yeah, that
third
was
16.
That was a huge pass breakup.
Huge, man.
And yeah, so I'm glad he's back from the concussion scare and the concussion protocol.
And he just brings a physical. He just throws his body like
he's always been like that.
I had a concussion last week. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? I got the Guardian cap on. I'm good to go. Let's go.
And his reputation was that he, injured our guys too, because he just goes so hard when he hits and when he goes after guys. And again, why I wasn't such a big fan of him, the penalties and things that come with that are not always great when they're in big situations. And you're like, well, you made the play, but who cares if you ended up giving them a first down and 15 yards anyway? But today he was the man out there and getting the job done. So, and
Definitely.
really it's just that, the team approach, that defensive. So him for the safeties, obviously, I already talked about Taron Johnson and Terrell Bernard being back together, and our cornerbacks just doing their thing too. I think Rasul got beat on one early. Again, you're talking one of the best receivers in the league. So
I think
it's
Benford
going
got
to
worked
be
a little
the,
bit. Benford got worked a little bit tonight.
yeah, yeah.
He got worked a little. It's okay. It's learning. It's a learning
But
curve.
it still was what I would call a solid performance by the cornerbacks. Like those two
Mhm.
guys, I don't think we still haven't given up an 80-yard receiver. Do you have the numbers in front of you of
Ooh,
what they ended up?
but Lazard and Wilson both had over 100 today.
Did they? Wow. Yeah. And that
Yeah,
obviously,
that Hail Mary
yes,
helped
the
a
Hail
lot of
Mary
points.
was a big assist in that situation. So, yeah,
But
that,
Garrett Wilson had eight receptions, 107 yards. He had a good day.
now him I would have expected it from, because
Yeah, yeah.
again, you're talking one of the best receivers in the league in terms of what he can do, his skill set, just making
Mhm,
plays and
mhm,
running routes. He does everything well, his
mhm,
hands. So
mhm,
we saw a little bit of all of that, by the way. He made it seem like he was
mhm,
showing off all his skills. That
mhm.
route run where he juked Rasul that I was talking about early in the game, and then a couple of plays where even though he was body on body, he made a catch, and um, certainly put his skill set on display. But luckily, it wasn't enough. I
And
I had the under on yardage for the other guys in this lineup, including Brees Hall and Conklin and Mike Williams. That was another one. Mike Williams had a huge drop, and then he had a big defensive play against him. So luckily, we kept those guys in check. The Aaron Rodgers, Alan Lazard obsession is weird to me. I figured Lazard would get some play today, but not 100 yards. That's a little more shocking. Again, assisted by that 50-plus yard Hail Mary play. But yeah, so again,
and
defensively, I thought it was a team effort once
yep.
they got it together and were able to make plays and not get penalties thrown every single. I mean, if you didn't get a flag called against you today, you're in the minority of the offense and defense. So that was,
Right.
yeah, it was ridiculous out there.
I like how Dorian Williams plays today too. And he makes mistakes. He's going to make his mistakes, but he makes his mistakes at full speed.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has amnesia because he'll come back, he'll make a mistake, and then he'll come back and he'll pop and do a physical play, run stuff in play. He pops on a film, and I really like what him now. He's not the game-changing kind of player that Matt Milano is,
Right.
but he definitely brings a physicality, and he definitely has some sideline ability. I like Dorian Williams' game, and he popped on film today again.
Yeah, he did. And he's been really filling in nicely for Milano in terms of I was worried preseason that was going to be a glaring hole that defenses really tried to attack. And he said, basically, come get it, right? Like he's not afraid to, like you were
Mhm,
saying,
mhm.
go all out and try and get it. So, yeah, he definitely had a big game as well. I'm trying to think of any other talking points we need to get to from this game. But
Josh Allen,
overall,
Josh Allen at
yes,
some point.
solid bounce back game for Josh Allen early in the game, taking what's given in terms of the short passes. When he went for the deep ball, he actually hit it, a couple of times, which was nice. And running when he needed to run only, it seemed, and obviously the uh, short yardage gains where it's the tush push, and
Mhm,
nobody in football does that better than Josh Allen. I said that for years already.
mhm,
Obviously the Eagles get the credit for it or whatever, and I'm like, we call that Josh Allen, right? He just falls forward for 3 yards. So
mhm,
if it's a yard or less, you're getting it, because the dude, if it's a yard or less, he gets 5 on the carry falling forward with the tush push. So
mhm.
he did that again today, and yeah, I felt like Josh's confidence came back in this game, whereas we were a little worried about that the last game, although I felt a lot of it was on the receivers as well. So good to see him get back in the action. My favorite play of the game, you mentioned it offhand, but my favorite play of the game was when Ray Davis went out and he's open and he's waving his hands in the air. Hey, I'm open. Hey, I'm open. Throw it to me. And
Mhm.
Josh is, got pressure on him and he wings it over, and Ray Davis is able to make a hell of a catch. But it was a great throw by Allen, a great play by Ray Davis, to keep the momentum on that drive going. And that was, the play of the game for me. Like, wow, that one I'll remember going forward, because it's not often you send your running back on a deep drive and they're waving their hands that they're open and they get them the ball, and able to make a big play there too. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Bounce back, big bounce back game for Josh Allen. I think he was 19 to 25, 19 to 25, about 216 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing
nice.
touchdown. So he got, 2 more touchdowns. I think he has up to 10 touchdowns on the season, 0 interceptions. So,
0. That's the big number again. Today
mm-hmm,
was one of those games where you're like, okay, it's the
mm-hmm,
Jets. We know they've got 2 good corners.
mm-hmm.
Obviously, what's his name? DJ goes out with an injury.
Mm-hmm.
What, in the 3rd quarter? I think it was. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I mean, but we knew that they're capable of taking the ball away, those guys, and this defense in general. And yet Josh Allen protects the ball. Now he did have the fumble. He didn't lose the fumble. That was the play Osiris Torrance jumped on. But overall, excellent play from excellent bounce back game. MVP type of performance again. Take out the last 2 games, and if you put those first 3 games with this one, people would be calling him the MVP. So I like that he got back on track, and this is the Josh we expect to see. And then having no interceptions thing is just, I think, speaks to his mindset in being more deliberate about that coming into this season. What I've always loved about Josh is he gets better consistently over time. And I've said that over and over again. And this is just another one of those things where he's like, oh, everybody's saying I throw too many interceptions, I give too many turnovers. I'm going to show them, and certainly has throughout this, the first 6 games now of this season.
Absolutely. Big plays. Josh Allen, that incredible touchdown to Dawson Knox where he escaped the pocket.
Oh, Houdini.
Yeah, Houdini. That's the correct term, and it was able to find Dawson Knox for the touchdown. That was possibly my favorite play on offense. My favorite play on defense, though, was the New York Jets. They was having a lot of success with that little quick pitch to Breece Hall. They was having a bunch of success, that little quick pitch, because they had their guys and Tyron Smith, he was coming over on the last one, and Rasul Douglas just made an incredible play to get down Breece Hall at the end of that game. That was one of my favorite plays where Rasul Douglas was able to dip under Tyron Smith. You'll see it in the All-22 if you don't know what I'm talking about. Dip under Tyron Smith, who was pulling and was able to make a physical tackle. Yeah,
that was nice.
That was
juked him. He just juked.
that was one of the plays of the game. My favorite play on the defensive side of the ball, man. So it was good to see guys step up and make plays. It's good to see. We want to harp on our coaches and we want to harp on our teams, but it's good to see us make necessary adjustments when need be, because the Buffalo Bills, they wasn't showing resistance in the beginning of the game on defense, just kind of like in the Arizona game, the first game of the season. And as the game went along, of course, the Jets made plays throughout the night, but the Buffalo Bills, throughout all the frantic stuff, was able to buckle down and make key plays, game-changing plays. The Taylor Rapp and DeMar Hamlin in the end zone, breaking it up against Garrett Wilson. The Taylor Rapp against Jeremy Ruckert, I believe the tight end on 3rd and 16. Those are game-changing plays. Rasul Douglas was able to dip under Tyron Smith. So those were game-changing type plays for the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion. And it's good to see the players step up when necessary and make plays.
Yes, definitely. One other point that I think we didn't talk about toward the end of the game again, the Aaron Rodgers hand motion coming forward wasn't a fumble? Like, what? I thought the tuck rule happened way back ago, and now we're talking about if the ball is pointing down. Apparently they said, well, it got impeded by the Bills player hitting his arm, so that's why it's still considered not a fumble. But in my mind, you could clearly see the ball did not come out here. It came out on the way down. And that to me meant fumble, but I guess not in the ref's mind. And the New York refs, the review officials who said that, no, wait, this isn't a fumble, carry on. And even though McDermott tried to make his case, they still said, no, we don't review that. They already told us it's automatically reviewed and it was not a fumble. So, I didn't like how that worked out. And to me, that was one of those moments again where it was like, are you kidding me? Even here, we make this big play and they're going to, throw it in our face again. And now we're going to let them try and come back in this game. But not too long after that, obviously, was the big interception play that Taron Johnson made. So not sure. You mentioned it earlier too. What was the refs, the conversations going on between the refs, with the refs in their ear and the refs on the field and the
It was too much. It was too much.
Yeah, just I don't know if it was the personal fouls were the ones that I had the most problem with, because
Right.
I'm like, what are you calling or what's going on? But
It's football, man. Let
yeah,
the guys play football.
yeah, and the trash talk, like now you're officiating trash talk. What's going on there that really could be going on? I don't know, but it was both sides. To be fair, it was
It was
both
both
sides.
sides.
I'm not saying the refs were this way or that way in this game. That was ugly by all means. So not a game I'm going to want to remember, but one I will, as like the ugliest game I've ever seen, and the most up and down in terms of when you were like, it felt to me anyway, momentum's all gone. The Jets are going to win this game. Oh no, wait, we've got momentum back, and now we're going to win. Oh no, we blew it. So now we're giving them the
It's a
opportunity.
roller coaster of a game.
One thing and then in the other, it was just, and not in a competitive good way where it was like with the Chiefs in the playoffs, for example, where it's back and forth and you're like, oh, this game's awesome. This was not fun to watch, and not the type of game you want to see and play from your point of view of the team, right? So yeah, definitely ready to move on and take that W and say, okay, we got a lot to clean up, but we got that W against a tough divisional opponent. Next game coming up is Tennessee at home. You have to really like that matchup for Buffalo, playing at home against an opponent that has had their own struggles this season for sure.
I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
A lot of those penalties, I think you said it best. The most frustrating part about the officiating was the unnecessary roughness calls and the personal foul calls. But a lot of those penalties that were called were actually penalties. How concerned are you with Sean McDermott going forward? Because the New York Jets participated in these penalties that the Buffalo Bills, we are a highly penalized team under Sean McDermott, and now we have to worry about situational football late in games. How concerned are you about Sean McDermott and his ability to coach moving forward? Because there's not going to be the New York Jets kind of things going on in the playoffs. You're facing elite level stable organizations and coaches. So where's your confidence level at?
I'd still say that that's fairly high in terms of Sean McDermott. I think he's done well with that over the years, just because now he has the track record. We can go back and look, and we know that if a guy messes up in a big situation, they pay for it usually. Like, I'm benching your ass, or you're going to get a talking to, or the next game we're not going to go to you as much, whatever it might be. That those players, if you make that big mistake in a big situation, bonehead mistake, not necessarily like, okay, you had to do that or whatever type of mistake, but within reason for punishment mistake, Sean McDermott has kept it under wraps, and usually it doesn't happen again with that same player. So, for example, from today's game, I mean, Deion Dawkins hates the Jets. He's made it known, right? And Deion Dawkins is not somebody who averages a penalty a week in terms of a personal foul or unnecessary roughness or whatever, and yet this week he gets called for the one in between commercial breaks while they're switching the field. That's not something I put on McDermott. That's this game. That's tension. That's the refs. That's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of factors that come into play there. So for me, I trust McDermott's reputation with that in terms of having the guys mentally ready to not make big mistakes in big moments. With him, it's really about his mental capacity to not make the right calls in big moments or manage the clock or do all his head coaching things in the moment. That's the biggest concern I do have with McDermott. Do you have concern there? Is that why you asked it, or are you just thinking?
I just wanted to know your overall thoughts on McDermott. I have concerns. Not necessarily with certain penalties that happen, because of the heat of the moment, the tension, the AFC East divisional foes. I get that, but the ability to coach and the ability to call the right play and the ability to put your guys in the right situation when the pressure is at its highest height, right? that's where I'm having my concerns with Sean McDermott. In my opinion, what happened with the Hail Mary tonight is inexcusable. It is
100%.
inexcusable. And even if I should have took a picture of how we was aligned with 20 something 7 or 1 seconds with a couple of timeouts left at the end of the half, it showed me that Sean McDermott, first of all, we was wondering who the hell to blame. Was it Leslie Frazier, Sean McDermott? No, it's Sean McDermott.
Mm-hmm.
I still blame Sean McDermott. And what are we learning from this? Are we growing from this? And I don't know if he is. If you put that on display to end the half, I'm not sure if you have grown, and I'm not sure if you have the ability to grow. So I am slightly concerned. Especially when you have a guy like Tyler Bass missing kicks. The more imperfections you have, the perfect you have to be as a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I have my concerns.
That is true. That that part of the game does concern me with him. And again, I don't think there's anything he can do in season to lose his job. But if he does that again in the postseason, where it's a bonehead mistake or a bad management or bad clock, whatever you want to call it, his typical boneheaded mistakes that now, my argument last week was the same, that he has one job now. You have one job, manage the team. Management, in-game management. You got all these helpers. You're letting the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator do their thing. You're not the defensive play caller like you were last year. You are focusing on your game management, and yet you're still messing it up. That's not a good place to be for Sean McDermott. And hopefully, again, I'd rather work that out and get those kinks done out of the way now rather than in the postseason. But if it happens game in and game out, this is 3 games in a row where I've been livid about something that is Sean McDermott's fault, in my mind at least. I know other people have said that certain things aren't Sean McDermott's fault, but a few of us in the Built-in Buffalo chat at least have been on the same page. Like, no, this is 90% Sean McDermott's fault. Like, that is not okay. Sean McDermott does a lot of things well, but the things he doesn't do well are what is costing this team from taking the next step. He got us here, without a doubt. Sean McDermott's leadership took us out of the trenches. But now we've got to take that next step, and I hope he's got it in him to be the coach that does that, because if he does, then he could be our coach for the next 20 years. But if he can't, then we got to move on and figure out, start from scratch again, which is never really fun to do. You still have Josh Allen and the pieces, but it's
not fun and it's not easy. It's not easy at all.
You're not going to expect 10 wins like you would by default under Sean McDermott at this point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So on that note,
I
think we're going to wrap it up here. The Bills, ladies and gentlemen, come out with the victory. It was ugly. It was back and forth. It was a roller coaster. There was so much bad going on. But ultimately, 23-20, Bills win. We are 4-2. We are going, and we have a home game coming up against Tennessee now on Sunday at our normal time. It's like, we're back to just playing our normal schedule. So hopefully that works out and keeps us in the right mindset to learn and grow for the rest of the season, keeping it on point there. But we want to thank you all for tuning in with us after this game. It's good to chat, let it all out, get the emotions out there while we're still feeling and thinking and doing all of this. So on behalf of all of us at Built in Buffalo, thanks for tuning in with us and catch our shows and content weekly. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Akeem, you got anything else for us?
Nah, and I think Anthony, I think you worded everything perfectly. It was a rough one. It was a rough game. It was a rough one. But when you have a rough game, at least you ought to come out on top. And the Buffalo Bills did so today, 4-2, first place in the AFC East at the end of the day. And I'll take it. Go Bills.
Go Bills, baby.